All right, so we'll start with the first one, which is the ultimate guide to short-term rentals.
Cleaners, yes, you could find a housekeeper, but a short-term rental cleaner is completely different. They have a different standard. They have to wash all the sheets. They have to look at their calendar. People might cancel last minute and then they can't go that day. So it's completely a different beast.
Wow, you're blowing my mind. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, I would say that's completely true. Look, ultimately, just like photographers, we want to have someone that specializes in short-term rentals. We're not selling a house just the same way short-term rentals is different. So what we want to find is someone that specializes in short-term rentals that can clean the house, but more importantly, that's going to be able to reset that home and make it look brand new before the next guest checks in. And if you've got someone that fills your calendar, this could be, and a lot of the times they're same-day turns. So we want to make sure that the person that we're having in and cleaning our home and setting inventory and doing these things, they're making sure that it is same day turns. Next one. All right, this one is guest breaks countertop and lies about it.
So I've seen Airbnb guests do some weird stuff before, but this is a new one for us for sure. This last week, we had a large family spend 3 nights at our newest Airbnb property. So the morning after she arrives, our automated message goes to her basically asking if something is out of place, please report any dissatisfaction right away. And she responds with, check-in was a breeze and we've not experienced any issues. Now, we did not hear anything else from her until she was checking out 3 days later when she sent this. She mentioned marker on a curtain and a broken mini blind, which are not a big deal, but then she said the countertop in the bathroom downstairs is cracked. And when my cleaner gets there, she sends me this. So the first thing I do in a case like this is I get an invoice together for the estimated cost to repair. Then I reached out and contacted the guest in the most professional way that I could. Now, she immediately got defensive, said that they did not crack it, it was there on check-in, but that she also has time-stamped photos proving that. So then about 20 minutes later, she sends over a picture of the broken vanity top taken at exactly 4 p.m. on the day of their arrival. She also sends me a picture of broken mini blinds taken at 4:36 p.m. And that is when I check my camera footage. At 4 p.m. when this photo is timestamped, she is not even in the house, she is in the driveway. Not only that, but in the photo of the broken mini blinds, it is clearly dark outside, while at 4:36 when it's timestamped, it's still light. Now at this point, I went ahead and filed an Airbnb air cover claim, which sends a request to the guest to pay, but she declined it right away. So at that point, I involved Airbnb and they ended up paying me immediately for it. So I'm just curious what you guys think. Do you think there's a chance that the guest is innocent?
So I'd say that this host did everything right. The only thing that I would add to this is what we want to do is when our cleaners, they go in and they inspect the home, after the guest checks out, we want before and after photos. So there should be a time-stamped photo based on the checklist that's in place that documents the condition of that bathroom and shows the day before she checked in, there was no crack, let's say at 3:55 p.m. Then she checks out and there is a crack. So you need to have a process in place that will protect you because these things ultimately happen. Guests do deny damages all the time. Luckily, this was a $400 claim and not $4,000. Airbnb stepped in, they did the right thing to take care of it, but really great detective work by the host. We just want to make sure that we've got the systems in place, that we have timestamped documentation prior to the check-in and then after the check-in. Next one is Airbnb horror story.
We had to call the police into the building while we were there. With Airbnb, one of the areas where I've made mistakes and continue to make mistakes, like last week, we had some drug addicts who were staying in one of the units and they had invited all of their friends all night into the building. It caused quite a ruckus for our other tenants. It was a situation where the person had 0 reviews. And on a daily basis, we're making judgment calls on 0 review people. But it could be that we were just so busy that day that we just accepted someone that turned out to be a disaster. They had filled our entire laundry room up with their laundry. It took about 40 garbage bags to fill all of their clothing into those bags and get them out of the unit.
That's an incredible story. I would say you've got to protect yourself. You should have a system in place that will screen your guests, do a background check, have them sign a rental usage agreement, put a credit card up with their name for a security deposit, and we should get a calculated risk score based on that guest. In this case, the guest didn't have any reviews. I would say half of our guests don't have reviews. That doesn't mean that they're gonna do drugs and fill the laundry room worth of stuff. But what it does mean is we need to dig a little bit deeper. And you can do that. We use a tool called Auto Host, but there's other guest screening platforms that you all can utilize in order to screen your guests, or whoever that's doing your property management for you should be screening your guests. Let's see what the next one is. Slow bookings, part 1.
Airbnb bookings are slowing down, but the important piece is that slowdown does not need to impact you. Airbnb bookings are slowing down compared to last year and the year before, but anyone that was an investor for a long time or has been looking at the numbers knew that was going to happen. The more accurate statement is to say that Airbnb bookings radically sped up over the last 2 years. They're not actually slowing down this year so much as they sped up massively in a lot of markets over the last couple of years. Yes, in some markets they are starting to slow down back to normal.
I disagree. So it depends on the operation. You know, all of our listings that we have live, whether it's houses that we own or that we manage, they're doing double, triple the revenue year over year, no matter what the market is doing. So if you've got the right operator, you have the right revenue management, and you have the right design in place, we'll always be top performers in short-term rental space in every single market. Even the most saturated markets are gonna have the people that, you know, perform way above in the top 5%, 10%, and 1%. So you've got to partner with the right operator and make sure you have the right pricing strategy in place. The other thing that I'll say is, as we see it, actually days booked on Airbnb is up year over year. Supply is also up. So we want to make sure that we are picking the right location, the right amenities, and partnering with the right person to drive a great revenue management strategy. That way you're staying at the top of the market. All right, next one. Are you a creepy Airbnb host?
Never ever spy on your guests. Now we have security cameras. Not sure if you can see those cameras, but the cameras are there just in case something happens and we can go back and look to see what happens. It isn't there for me to look to see what my guests are doing while they're staying in my property.
I agree 100%. Look, we get questions, not all the time, but sometimes that ask, do we have cameras on the property? And the answer is yes, and they are disclosed as they should be in the listing. There are really 2 devices that you can go with. You can go with a noise monitoring system, such as Minute or Noise Aware, that will mount generally to the ceiling, that will measure the decimal level of that area or environment. And it will alert you and the guests. You can program it if it reaches a certain threshold for a certain period of time. You can even have quiet periods. The other thing is cameras, and we can put these on the exterior, not the interior of the home, as long as they're properly disclosed. And sometimes a red flag to us is when a guest reach out and they say, you know, hey, you do have a camera, we're not going to book it unless you turn off the camera. That's a pretty big red flag. Our response to them is respectfully, we're not going to do that. The other thing is we have many homes. The last thing that we're going to do is sit there and watch, you know, on a camera and see exactly what people are doing. It is there to record, and that recording is used if there was something to happen. It also helps with any liability aspect of it. Next one is the importance of a rental agreement.
We got a rental agreement signed with a signature. Highly suggested. And no, I'm not referring to just the house rules that you might have in Airbnb, but we send out an actual rental agreement. It's a contract to rent the property. They sign it digitally. It has the dates of the reservation. It's one thing that you definitely want to have in a situation like this so you can provide it to the police if you need to. So we got a rental agreement signed, we got a credit card payment, we got a deposit hold, we got a selfie from the guest. So this is another thing that our team does to match up the photo with the ID. So we also get their ID. We got all of these things. So I think we were doing a pretty good job.
I agree. You know, you've got to be able to screen your guests. We use a tool called Auto Host, but that requires a selfie, a signed rental agreement, a credit card deposit that matches their name. And look, we kick people back all the time. They use a credit card that's not theirs. I mean, you want to protect yourself and probably the number one investment that you have, and that's properly screening your guests. And, you know, you have to have a system in place in order to do that. The one we use is called Auto Host. It's a really great screening tool, but that's just one thing that you could put in place in order to screen your guests. The other factor is you've got a usage agreement. And in states like Florida and Texas where we operate, it's very difficult for someone to get a, tenant status where they could claim that they are, paying rent or something like that. So if we cancel the reservation or that date on the usage agreement expires, we can have the police trespass that person and remove them physically from the property. All right, next one. Airbnb guest destroyed my home.
Walls have been punched in, there's vomit on the table, rubbish galore, absolute pigs.
The guests threw a party that went out of control.
The worst thing is they've smashed everything. Smashed mirrors, people have weed on the walls. Our beautiful house has been trashed.
Oh my gosh, that's very bad. I mean, you're probably talking thousands of dollars worth of damage. This is why it is so critical to know who's checking in your home. And don't just go off of the fact that Airbnb identified them or they're verified through Airbnb. Ultimately, it's up to you or whoever you hire to do a proper screening of the guests, getting a live selfie, a driver's license or a passport, a credit card that matches their name for a security deposit, and a signed rental agreement. Hopefully, this host learned a few lessons and has something in place. The other thing that we can screen is, how many people are staying? What is the purpose of the trip? There's other questions you can ask to dig in a little bit deeper that will allow you to find out who's actually going to stay in your home. Next one is the pros and cons of Airbnb hosting.
Here are the pros and cons of doing Airbnb. 1, you get higher rent. When you do Airbnb, you're going to get higher rent than you actually get from you doing long term. For example, like a typical house, you can probably get about $4,000 a month in Seattle. But if you do Airbnb, you can probably get up to like $8,000 a month. So you're gonna make better cash flow doing Airbnb, no question about it. Number 2, tenant. When you do Airbnb, you're gonna have tenant go move in and out like a hotel business. If that's what you want, great. Or you do long term, you put them in one time at market value, and then they basically stay for a long time. I've tenant with me now for like 10 years. 3, active versus.
Yeah, 2 things I would touch on is just because you have cash flow doesn't mean you have profitability. So when you're looking at, yes, in San Francisco, you could get $8,000 a month, but what does that house cost? What's the mortgage, taxes, principal, interest, everything all in? What's your overhead, and what's your profit? Those 2 are very different things that I would disagree with in that situation. The other thing is in the off season, your price per night may be lower than if you did a long-term strategy, but overall, a short-term rental normally yields higher results. The second point that he made there was long-term versus short-term, and he had a tenant that was with him for 10 years. My concern is if you haven't seen the inside of that house for 10 years, it could look like anything. So you want to have systems in place. The great thing about short-term rentals is it's made like new after each checkout, and you can evidence it with photos and a great checklist with your cleaners to make sure it is the way that it should be. All right, next one, Airbnb design.
Let's talk guest experience. First impressions. Let me give you a fast before and after. Check this out. Remember that hotel catchphrase, "We'll leave the light on for you"? They meant that literally. Stop trying to save money on your light bill and turn the lights on for your guest. They'll appreciate it.
Sean is 100% right here. Now, we don't leave all the ceiling fans and everything on, but we do instruct our cleaners, and we have it as a documented part of our checklist to leave on the lamps in each room. There should be one lamp, some ambient source of light, because you don't know what time your guests are going to arrive. And the other factor is they're walking into a house they probably have never even been in before. So you don't want them stumbling around in the dark. They don't know where the light switches are. You want a great guest arrival, and you want them to be relaxed, right? They're probably on a vacation, and you want a great nighttime arrival if that's when that they arrive. Last one, lint rolling.
Take your superhost status to the next level. We always lint roll our beds before guest arrival. Whether things come from the events or the cleaner's hair when they're about to leave, we make sure our linens are absolutely perfect by lint rolling every square inch.
I gotta laugh because last year we hosted 6,000 guests. We have never, as far as I know, lint rolled a bed before a guest check-in. Couple things to take into consideration. Number one, what process are you having to lint roll? So it could be a part of your checklist for the cleaner. That's not a problem. But let's say there's a gap like 2 to 5 days in between check-ins. Who's gonna go right before check-in to lint roll every bed if there's something that falls out of the, of the vent? So that's something to take into consideration. The second thing is, it's certainly not necessary for you to be successful. Obviously, you want a house that is clean, and it's one of the big factors that they score on cleanliness when it comes to, them rating a review.